Judge Rader and the clerk and others, Lauren Freeman, and our plan is to just proceed on today in the operation of the court system until it becomes apparent that it would be unsafe to do so. So we'll keep an eye on the weather, and we'll just keep on keeping on. And I'll tell the jury that. All right, Sheriff, ask the jury to come in, please. Morning, folks. We're back in session. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate your careful attention to this trial. We're monitoring the weather. We have a sort of a committee of a number of people involved in that, and we will. The plan right now is to proceed on as long as we can safely, and if the situation changes, we'll change the plan. So. Ms. Holt, I believe you were asking some questions of Amanda Hayes yesterday. Do you have additional questions?
Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you. Ms. Hayes, yesterday you testified that you had met Grant Hayes when you were living in the Virgin Islands in 2009 and that you had become romantically involved with him, I think, toward the end of 2009. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And you moved to New York, at least in part, to get away from a boyfriend that you had broken up with in the Virgin Islands.
That's correct.
And you did that the very end of 2009, is that right?
Yes, we moved at the end of 2009, that's correct.
And when you say we, you and Shay moved to New York, and you were able to get a 3-bedroom apartment and move into that shortly thereafter.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And then you sent Grant Hayes a plane ticket to come to New York, is that right?
I just purchased it over either the internet or the telephone, I'm not sure which.
Okay. You purchased a plane ticket for Grant Hayes and let him know that you had purchased him a ticket.
That's correct.
And then he said this was about January, I believe you testified.
Yes, ma'am.
2010.
Yes, ma'am.
And so he moved into the apartment with you and Shay.
Correct.
And about a month later is when Little Grant actually came, and he was living there in the apartment with you and Grant Hayes and Shay.
Yes, ma'am.
And you described to Dr. Calloway when you spoke with her how as soon as you saw Little Grant that you fell in love with him instantly. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. He's a very adorable little boy.
And it was pretty much, I think, as you've described it, love at first sight with regard to Little Grant.
Both of the boys, yes, ma'am, it's true.
But at this point in February of 2010, Gentle wasn't there in New York. It was just Little Grant. You didn't meet him until later. Is that right?
Correct. I met Gentle in, I believe, May of 2010.
And during the time that Little Grant was living with you and Grant and Shay up in New York, at some point you and Grant decided that you were not going to send Grant back. Is that right?
It was Grant's decision.
Do you recall telling Dr. Calloway that you and Grant realized that you didn't want to return Grant IV to Laura?
Well, we had a discussion about it, so between the two of us.
You discussed the fact that you didn't want to send Grant IV back to Laura.
It was a conversation that we had, yes, that's correct.
And you told Dr. Calloway that you and Grant realized that Laura was untrustworthy because she had told a bunch of lies about Gentle's surgery.
Yes, ma'am. She had done several things that were not on the up and up, it appeared to me.
And you also told Dr. Calloway that Laura had filed for custody, and there was a court date that was set during a time that Grant was scheduled to be in China on some gig.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And during this time period, now that would have been in March of 2010, is that right, when Laura filed for custody?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
And during that time, you mentioned yesterday, I believe, that you purchased a plane ticket for Laura.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was offered to Laura in exchange for her dropping the custody suit, is that right?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Well, she, in any event, didn't take you up on that. She didn't use that ticket. She didn't come to New York.
No, ma'am, Grant had canceled the ticket.
Is it your testimony that that ticket was not offered to her in exchange for dropping the custody?
No, ma'am, it was not.
Was it after that that you decided, or let me ask this, in terms of the sequence of events, at that point was the ex parte order filed?
No, ma'am, we were still in New York. The ex parte was not until we were in North Carolina in the middle of the year. I believe it was June.
Actually, after Laura had filed for custody, that was still pending at that point, is that right?
Yes, ma'am,
And then that's when you and Grant went to Las Vegas and got married.
that's correct.
And it was shortly after that that you moved to Raleigh.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that was May of 2010.
Yes, that's correct.
And you moved here and you said that that was something that you, I think as you told the jury yesterday, honestly, you did not want to move to North Carolina.
No, ma'am, I have never had any desire to live in North Carolina.
You, at this point, as you described it to this jury, had outgrown Texas and had been to the Virgin Islands and moved back to New York, and that's where you were before this North Carolina move.
Yes, ma'am, I lived in New York for approximately 6 years, with the exception of the time I spent in LA and Texas. And then I went to the Virgin Islands for 3 years and then back to New York.
And when you moved to North Carolina, you did that under the understanding that you would only be here for 3 months.
That's correct.
And that was to deal with the custody matter, is that right?
That's correct. And to make sure that Gentle got his surgery.
And when you moved to North Carolina, you went and rented the apartment at Bella Park
All
Trail.
you can eat?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And
No.
you listed, as far as other people that were going to live there, you listed Grant IV, is that right?
Yes, ma'am, he was in our custody at that time.
But you didn't list Grant Hayes, did you?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Didn't make any mention of him living there on the lease.
No, ma'am, I did not.
And at that point, I believe you testified yesterday, you all took possession of Gentle, being you and Grant Hayes.
I'm sorry, repeat the question?
You took possession of Gentle at that point?
Not until the middle of June when the ex parte order went into effect.
So in terms of the court proceedings at that point, there was an agreement with regard to the ex parte order, what started it with regard to this shared custody. During the week, Grant and Gentle would be with you and Grant, and then during the weekends, they would be with Laura.
That's correct.
And it was around this time that you met with Laura and assured her that nobody was trying to take her place or make her...
I did not ever meet with her. She and I spoke on the telephone, and that's when we were still in New York.
And is it at that point that you told her that you were not trying to push her out?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
You indicated that you moved down here with the idea that you were going to be here for 3 months.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And you signed a lease for a year, is that right?
Yes, ma'am, because once we got here, I realized that it was definitely going to take longer than 3 months.
You realized that when you moved in on May the 20th?
At that time, I had a suspicion that it was going to, and the reason I signed the year lease, I mean, it's not, you can get out of a lease. I mean, I lived in New York, you can sublet, worst case scenario. So I was not concerned about signing a 1-year lease if the possibility of me not being here for 1 year.
So that was in May, specifically May the 20th of 2010, is that right?
I know that it was May. I don't know the specific date.
And it went much longer than 3 months.
Yes, ma'am, that is very correct.
In fact, by July the 13th of 2011, I mean, you'd gone over a year.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And during that time, Laura was calling to speak with those boys, as you described yesterday, on your phone. You called it the children's phone, but
Yes,
that was
ma'am.
your phone.
That's correct. It was under my name. That is correct.
And she was calling twice a day,
Yes, ma'am.
every day.
Yes, ma'am.
And a lot of days, there were multiple calls where she was trying to get up with the boys. Is that right?
Occasionally, that's correct.
And then on the weekends, you would have to meet with Laura to exchange custody of the boys. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Somebody would have to meet with her.
Well, didn't you testify yesterday that Grant asked you to go with him so that Laura wouldn't taunt him?
Yes, usually, the majority of the time, both of us did go. Sometimes I went by myself, sometimes he went by himself, and every once in a while, Shay would go with one of us. And on several occasions, Grant actually had a friend go with him whenever nobody was available to go.
And you were aware, at least at some point, were you not, that Laura was recording her interactions with you and Grant at those exchanges?
I never had any proof, but we were definitely suspicious of it.
And you were aware that the phone calls were being recorded or had some suspicions?
Exactly, yes, ma'am.
And during this over a year process, Dr. Calloway's evaluation was going on.
Yes, ma'am.
And you've indicated at this point you've paid, did you pay the full $12,500?
Yes, ma'am, plus attorney fees.
How much did you pay in attorney's fees?
I cannot say specifically. I don't recall. It was a lot.
Was it more than $10,000?
Definitely.
More than $20,000?
Definitely.
More than $30,000?
I really don't know for sure at that point.
You have testified and produced records showing kind of your financial state by July of 2011.
Yes,
And,
ma'am.
You were broke.
Yes, ma'am.
You were being evicted from the apartment.
That's correct.
And you were making plans at that time not only to be in North Carolina and extending your stay in North Carolina, but to move to Kinston.
That is
right?
correct, to stay with his parents for a little while, correct.
And the reason to move to Kinston at that point was to be closer to where the boys were, is that right?
That was definitely a reason.
And at this point, you had received the evaluation back from Dr. Calloway.
Correct, I believe we received it in the middle of May sometime.
And you knew that her recommendation, at least to the court, was for there to be this 223 type visitation.
That's correct.
And you thought that was ridiculous.
Yes, ma'am, I sure did.
You didn't want to have any further contact with Laura.
It's not that I didn't want to have any further contact with Laura, it's just that I felt like that was not in the best interest of the boys, that they were at such a young age, and to be back and forth in a car for 12, 14 hours every single week was definitely ridiculous. That was another reason that we had planned on going to Kinston also, so that it could work out a little better.
You were aware, were you not, that after you got that evaluation back from Dr. Calloway in June, that there had been a midweek visit at the Monkey Joe's?
Yes, ma'am. Whenever we received the evaluation, Laura reached out and asked to have a midweek visit to try it, since that was her recommendation.
And that pretty much was a disaster.
According to what Grant had told me, correct.
You knew that the boys, when they were being separated from Laura, were crying, and that it was just a scene that was created at Monkey Joe's.
Again, but just I know what Grant had told me.
And you knew that, that also Grant had said, that's it, there's not going to be any more midweek visits.
The next week, whenever she reached out, he told her no.
So turning your attention to the week beginning with that Monday, July the 11th.
Yes, ma'am.
You testified that the plan was that Saturday you were planning to move to Kinston.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And at that time, the arrangement whereby Laura had the kids on the weekend was still in place, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so she would, had everything gone like it normally did, she would have had the children on that Friday.
That's correct, and Grant was going to talk to her about her just keeping the boys. I had really been, ever since he came back from Hawaii, I had really been just stressing to him, and especially after we got Dr. Calloway's evaluation, to just let her have them.
So that's something that you had brought up with Grant and talked with him about?
Numerous times. It had been a conversation of ours many times throughout that year.
And on that Tuesday, that's when there was this contact between Grant and Laura about this midweek visit on that Wednesday, is that right?
Yes, ma'am, that's what he told me, that's correct.
Well, on that Tuesday, you were sitting next to him when he was making those arrangements, weren't you?
I can't say for sure that I was sitting next to him. Was I in the same house? Yes, I was. I didn't leave and go anywhere on Tuesday. And I really did not get in the middle of the two of them. A lot of times whenever Grant would ask me, ultimately I would tell him that they're his children, that he has to make the decision. I did encourage them to have I encouraged him to have good communication with her because they had children together, and that it was important for them to get along, at least for her. I mean, for the boys, I'm sorry. I was thinking of Shay because, whenever Shay was little, her dad and I had a brief issue, and in learning from experience, he and I did not have good communication, and it allowed her, whenever she got older, to kind of manipulate and play us against each other, and that was something that I had learned, that it was better when the parents could communicate.
So based on your experience, Grant asked you about the midweek visit, and that was something you discussed with him.
I don't believe that he asked me about the midweek visit. We had he had asked my opinion a couple of times what he should do letting the boys go with Laura. I told him my opinion that if he really believed that it had to do with money, that he should let her take the boys, that 2 boys were a lot of work, and if she is working and going to school and trying to do that, she's going to realize that she does need more help, and that if it's really just about money, I felt like she would end up giving them back to him.
So your suggestion to Grant was let Laura take the kids and then she'll give up on them after a while? Return them?
If that's what it was truly about, I felt like that's what would happen.
And so on this particular night, being the Tuesday night, do you recall there being interaction between Grant and Laura setting up this midweek visit?
Honestly, Grant was on the computer 99% of the time if he was awake, so what he was doing on the computer, I really don't know.
So if the email, which is setting up that meeting, says the wife and I are sitting here watching Chelsea, that doesn't ring any bells to you as to being aware that there was a visit that was being set up at that time?
Again, he's on the computer all the time. He and Laura emailed and texted each other constantly.
Texting each other constantly, you've indicated that he didn't give Laura his telephone number, so that was on
That's correct.
your phone and the kid's phone?
That's correct. I think only the last maybe couple months did she actually have the 8581 number.
When did, Ms. Hayes, were you aware of this visit that was to take place the next day?
I don't recall if he told me that night, or I think he did tell me that night at some point. But it wasn't, I mean, it wasn't anything, I wasn't like shocked by it or, oh my gosh, nothing like that.
At some point you discussed that there was going to be a midweek visit.
Yes,
is
ma'am,
that
that's
right?
correct. He told me that he was going to try it again with her.
And at this point, you've indicated earlier that Grant Hayes was not bringing anything into the household in terms of money. So
That's correct.
He was sitting there with you during the day. You were not working.
No, ma'am, I was not working. I was very, very pregnant.
I'm sorry, we're talking about July the 13th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I had just had a baby then. That's correct.
And so in terms of your pregnancy, what did that have to do? You hadn't worked since you had been in North Carolina, had you?
That's correct, no. No, I hadn't worked it since I left the Virgin Islands.
Now, that Wednesday, you, did you understand from talking to Grant Hayes that the visit was to take place that afternoon?
Yes, ma'am.
And that would have involved initially, I believe, you testified, Grant taking the boys to Monkey Joe's?
That's correct. He had told me that he was going to meet her there with the boys.
And at some point, that plan changed, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was after Laura had called and that 4651 number and said that she was running late.
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
And did you answer the phone when she called?
No, ma'am. His phone did not have any money on it for several days, and so he had been using that phone, the 7651 phone, for a couple of days.
And at that point, you understood that Laura was going to come to the apartment, is that right?
Honestly, I don't know if he told me right then or not, but within a short time, he did tell me that she was just going to come get them and pick the boys up.
And was it before Laura got there or after Laura got there that he told you to keep the boys in the back room?
The boys and I were in my bedroom with Lily on the bed, and we were watching a movie, The Cars, and it was after she got there. He told me that she was there. He came in and asked me to keep them in there so that they could talk about her keeping the boys.
And so you were in the bedroom with the boys, and Lily, and Grant came into the room and told you that Laura was there?
He just told me to keep the boys there, that she was there, and he was going to talk to her. That's correct.
Did he tell you he was going to talk to her about her keeping the boys?
We had already discussed that he was going to try to talk to her. He didn't tell me specifically, but yes, I knew he was going to try to talk to her about her keeping the boys.
So before Laura even got there, you and Grant had a discussion about he and Laura having a discussion about the boys.
That's correct.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Amen.
Ms. Hayes, this
Yes,
has
ma'am.
previously been introduced, State's Exhibit Number 62, and you recognize this to be a layout of the apartment there at Bella Park Trail, is that right?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And it's previously been identified as this being the front door to that apartment, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And how big an apartment is this? How many square
It's,
feet?
I really don't know the square footage. It's a 3-bedroom.
Okay. And you indicated that at the time that Laura arrived, and she would have come in the front door, there's only one way to get into
That's
this apartment,
correct.
is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
That you were in the bedroom?
Yes, ma'am, I was in this bedroom right here.
Okay. And when Grant came back into this bedroom, it was you, Little Grant, Gentle, and Lily, all of you in this bedroom, is that
Yes, ma'am,
right?
we were all on the bed watching TV.
And then he left out of this bedroom?
Yes, ma'am.
And yesterday you indicated that after a while that you had gotten up and gone into the dining room.
Yes, ma'am, I came out and the master bedroom right there is where Lily's changing table was. That room was kind of whenever we first moved in, Grant had set that room up as his studio to record music. And then when Shay came, he lost it to her. And then when Shay moved out, it became his studio again. And we had intended on moving before Lily was born into a house, and that did not happen. So at that time, my plans was to make that into her nursery, and so that's where her changing table and stuff was at. That's where I was heading.
And you came into the dining room area. Did you get all the way in the dining room?
I just stopped right here. There was a round table right here, and there were 4 chairs, one on each side, and Grant was sitting here, and Laura was sitting here. And I stopped behind Grant and read the letter over his shoulder.
And at that point, you've indicated that you read the letter.
That's correct.
And the letter is what's previously been shown to this jury, in which not that Laura would take the kids, but that you and Grant would take the kids. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am, that is.
And the letter also said that you and Grant would pay Laura $25,000.
I don't recall seeing my name on the letter. It said that Grant would pay her.
Okay. Did Grant have $25,000?
No, ma'am, and that was part of the reason that I was kind of upset, was because we had spent all this money. He told me that he was going to talk to her about her taking it. He was expecting to get about $50, $60 from his iPhone cases, which was something he had been working on. He had done all this artwork, and he was working with this gentleman in New York who was helping him have these iPhone cases manufactured in China. And he was also working with another gentleman who was distributing them to convenience stores, and they were really trying to get into the the Apple store. Anyway, and so I was like, we've spent all this time and everything, and now we're finally going to get a little bit of money to get ahead, and you're just giving it to her, and he didn't have a discussion or anything with me in regards to actually having the follow-through to do it. And so I was upset at both of them.
And what did you do?
I just turned around and walked off. That was part of the reason I just wanted out of there. I didn't even want to be around either one of them.
And at some point, you've indicated that, you said you walked out of there. Where'd you go?
I was headed to the nursery, and that's whenever Laura, she had asked me if she could hold the baby, and I just ignored her because I didn't want her to hold the baby. I didn't want to be around either one of them. And, it upset her because she said that I had her kids and I wouldn't even let her see mine. And whenever she approached me, I guess she tripped over the rug. She bumped into me. But Grant saw the whole thing, and he came to her, and he just grabbed her to pull her back.
Now, you say that you were going to the nursery. Now, that's that bedroom.
The master,
pointed
it's
out.
labeled the master bedroom, that's correct.
And as you're walking, you said you guessed she tripped. Now, that's something that's occurring behind you?
I was kind of, I was walking towards, so yeah, it's kind of behind me to my side, whatever. I hadn't turned yet.
And at that point, is that the point where you ran? back to the bedroom?
I didn't run, I just kind of huddled around the baby, and Grant grabbed her and was pulling her backwards, and they started struggling. And there's if I may, is there any way that I can see on the floor plan and show you?
Got me approach?
Sure.
Right here in the living room, there's a love seat, and right here, there's a rocking chair. And this right here is just a little partial wall. It just has a little corner, and this is a closet. So really, it's just like a little nook. And whenever I was in between the love seat and the rocking chair, and so it all occurred right here. So I was walking this direction, and Grant just was pulling her backwards, and she told him to get his hands off of her. And whenever she
Was
did,
she screaming?
it wasn't screaming, but she was like maybe yelling. I wouldn't say screaming, but she told him to get her hands off, or his hands off of her. And she kicked this little wall right here. And whenever she did, they went backwards, and there was a chair, and they flipped over. They fell over. They tipped the chair over when they fell, and that's when I went to the bedroom. And whenever I got to the bedroom, little Grant was trying to come out, and I stopped him. And I just told him to come back and get on the bed. And he asked me what the noise was, and I told him that a chair fell over, and he wanted to know where his daddy was, and I told him he was picking up the chair, and that.
Okay. So when you went from here, when you described a struggle going on here, you actually...
No, ma'am, I went back this way around the love seat and came
Okay, I'm
back.
sorry, you came through here.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And did you run back to the room?
I went fast. I don't know if you say run, but I went fast, yes,
You
yes.
said run yesterday, didn't you?
I don't recall.
Did you hear Laura continue to yell or scream?
No, ma'am, I didn't hear anything else.
And your testimony before this jury is that Grant Hayes came in and at that point told you that Laura was hurt and he was going to call an ambulance.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And your testimony is that he told you he was going to get Laura or take Laura into the bathroom.
I don't remember exactly his terminology, if he was going to get her, take her, help her. I really don't know the exact word he used.
But according to your testimony, you understood that this was a serious injury because an ambulance was going to have to be
Yes, ma'am.
called.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you go out and try to assist and help Laura in any way?
No, ma'am, I felt like it was better if I stayed with the kids.
You understood Grant to say that in some way he was going to have to assist. You said you don't remember if it was assist, help, or take into the bathroom.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And that's the hall bathroom that he was referring to.
That is correct.
And there was no way to get out of that apartment without, out that front door without going down that hallway. Is that right?
That is correct, yes, ma'am.
How tall was Laura?
She and I are about the same height. I would say she's between 5'8" and 5'9".
And how tall is Grant?
He's probably about 5'6" or maybe 5'7".
So there's been previously testimony that he was 5'5". You think that's a little...
Yeah, he's a little taller than that. He's very muscular. Just because he's short, he's still kind of stout.
And at that point, you testified that you took the children and you left.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. He helped me. I had asked him, I told him I needed a diaper because Lily needed her diaper changed, and I was trying to get dressed and do Lily and everything, and he got my purse and the diaper bag and everything and helped me. He walked me out the door like he was trying to help me get out.
And at that point, did you hear Laura making any noise?
No, ma'am, I never heard her. I never saw her again, ever.
And when you went out, what time was it when you left the apartment?
I don't know, but it was still daylight, but it must have been around 7 or after 7 because I went by Monkey Joe's and they were already closed.
And you knew that they closed at 7 o'clock?
I recall Lauren say the other day that they closed at 7.
You didn't know before that what time Monkey Joe's closed?
Honestly, I didn't really pay attention.
And so from that time until you show up at the Chick-fil-A, that's over 3 hours?
Well, if it was around 7, I went to the BP station. I got the boys a slush. I got a pack of cigarettes. Whenever I left there, little Grant needed to go to the bathroom, and so I let him go pee-pee on the driveway by the grass over on the far side. Then I went to Wendy's through the drive-in window. I got myself a soda, and then I drove to the mall through the parking lot, and all the kids were asleep. I was going to take them in and walk around with them. And then I just drove around. I drove down, I'm sorry, I'm not from Raleigh, so I don't recall all the names of the streets, but I believe it's Glenwood, right there from the mall. You could go down that street. And I drove all the way down to almost where you can get onto the highway, and there's a gas station, and I turned to the right, and I went down to a street where I turned left, or I turned right again, and there's a big Kmart there. I don't know what that street is, but I went all the way back down and then hit Lynn Road again and went by the mall. And I did that, and then whenever I went back to the apartment, that's whenever Laura's car was still there. But when I was getting the boys out of the car, little Grant had told me he was hungry. And, you know, Grant usually went to the grocery store every day to get stuff for dinner. And I knew he wasn't there, and so I went ahead and took them to get something to eat.
So is the answer yes, that it was 3 hours from when you left the apartment until you showed up at the Chick-fil-A?
Well, like I said, I don't know exactly what time it is, so it's after 7. So even if it was 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 9:30, so that would be 2.5 hours.
And when you went to the Chick-fil-A, you purchased food not only for yourself and the boys, but you also purchased some food for Grant.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
This was at 10 o'clock at night.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you try to call Grant during that whole period of time?
No, ma'am, I didn't have a phone with me.
Did you try to borrow a phone or use a phone to try to give Grant a call?
No, ma'am, I was never around other people other than the kids.
And you indicated that when you went by initially that Laura's car was still there.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And did you see an ambulance there at that point?
No, ma'am, I didn't. I figured that the ambulance had already come and Grant had rode in the ambulance with Laura to the hospital.
When you went into the apartment, and what time was it when you did go into the apartment?
I really don't know for sure the time. It was probably close to 10:30 or 11. When I left the Chick-fil-A, when I put Lily in her car seat, she was crying like crazy, so I drove around just to try to calm her down, and she was still screaming, so I had pulled over and got her out to console her, and then that was just a few minutes, and then I went straight to the house. So for sure by 10:30 I was back.
And at that point, when you walked in, Grant was there,
Yes, ma'am.
and you've testified that what he told you was that Laura was fine and she had gone on home.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, he told me that she didn't want to go to the hospital, that she was fine.
Did you notice the rug under the dining room table at that point?
I'm not going to swear, but I think it was still there, honestly.
And the next morning, that's when you called Shay.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And you called Shay and you told her you needed her to come over right then, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am. Grant had told me before, he had told me the night before to ask Shay to come over so that we could get some stuff done. And he had told me to tell Shay to come first thing because Lauren had to go to, she usually went to the bank in the morning.
So you called Shay the morning of the 14th and told her to come over and to come over right then.
Yes, ma'am.
She was not happy about that, was she?
Shay is very grumpy, and honestly, there were lots of times during my pregnancy that she was not happy.
She was not happy about coming over first thing that morning. You hadn't asked her before that morning.
No, but there were several different occasions. One time I had to take Gentle. He had fell and he had to get staples in the back of his head, and she was mad because she had to go with me to watch the other, or Gentle, or Grant, because I was still pregnant with Lily. It was whenever Grant was gone. And there were just several incidences, so for her to be grumpy is not unusual to me. I'm used to her being grumpy occasionally.
You were insistent this day that she come on over there.
I'm usually insistent with her.
And when she came over, she's testified that Grant was in the bathroom.
If she says he was, I really don't know. He had just got there not long before she got there.
And when we speak of the bathroom here, we're talking about the hall bath, is that right?
At this time, he had closed that bathroom off because on Tuesday night, the toilet had gotten stopped up. And
That's the same bathroom that he took Lauren to, or he told you he was taking Lauren to,
that's
right?
correct.
And when Shay got there, she took the boys, Lily stayed with you and Grant, is that right?
That's correct.
And at that point, you and Grant began cleaning, is that right?
Whenever she first left, we just we spent about an hour just talking, trying to figure out, do we want to get a storage building in Kinston? You know, just kind of getting a game plan for our move. He had to go get some more boxes and stuff like that. And then we kind of started getting stuff together, and he was going to vacuum and clean, and yeah, so basically we were just getting stuff together.
And during that time, so you say that's when you decided to start making plans about the move?
Well, we had been, obviously we had been talking about the move for several weeks, but now we're down to it. We're in the middle of the week. We're supposed to be moving in just a couple of days. So we were trying to put it all into action now.
And at that point, or during that day, how long was Shay gone with the boys?
It was the majority of the day.
And she called back, and at least once you told her, we need more time.
Grant had asked me to ask her if she could keep them for a few more hours because we really hadn't got a lot of stuff done. And I don't recall if it's that particular time or the next time I spoke to her that he asked me to ask her about the vacuum cleaner.
So there was at least one phone call, there may have been several, where Shay was trying to bring the boys back and you told her you needed some more time.
It's not that she was trying to bring them back. At one time she called, and whenever the first time I talked to her, I asked her if she could keep them a little longer. And then the next time I talked to her, she said that they were hungry, that she was going to take them to Linwood Grill.
At least on one of those occasions, you told her that you needed more time.
That is correct.
And was it when she got back with the boys that you told her that you wanted to borrow a vacuum cleaner because yours
No,
was
ma'am.
broken?
No, ma'am. I had asked her on the telephone. It was whenever she was going to bring them back to put them down for a nap, and she said she would just bring them and then go get it.
And and so she came up into the apartment at that point?
Yes, ma'am. She just pretty much dropped them off and left again. And I had asked her if she would bring us, Grant and I, something back to eat, and she had stopped at Wendy's.
And when Shay took the boys, did she use the Durango for that?
No, ma'am. She has her own car.
And so the Durango was left there at the apartment with you and Grant?
That's correct.
And then it was that afternoon that you went shopping at the Target, is that right?
Yes, ma'am, I was just trying to get a few things for snacks.
And the few things included a container of bleach,
Yes, ma'am.
and it included electrical tape.
Actually, the tape that I purchased, I had bought that, I believe it's colored tape. I don't know if you saw it or not, but sometimes whenever I paint, I use tape, and whenever I saw it, they had all these different colors of tape, and I purchased the tape for my artwork.
So you decided to go pick up some snacks, some electrical tape for your, or some artwork tape, some bleach, a large lint roller, an eraser to get scuff marks and things off the wall.
I used the erasers, I kept them in the bathroom, and I always cleaned the bathtubs and the sinks. I cleaned the bathtubs after the boys because they would leave a ring around the bathtub, so I always had the erasers in the bathroom, that's correct.
So that was something that you used in cleaning bathrooms.
All the time, yes, ma'am.
On Friday, Friday's the day where you called Matt and asked about putting a trailer hitch on the Durango.
I never spoke to Matt, I spoke to Shay, and she spoke to
Was
Matt.
that the purpose of your call, to see about getting a trailer hitch put on the Durango?
I don't remember what the purpose of the initial call. During the conversation, yes, I asked her if Matt could put the trailer hitch on.
And ultimately, he basically told you that you needed to call someone else.
Yeah, I think he got irritated because, like I said, Grant had come in while I was speaking to her, and Grant was asking me questions to ask, and Shay was asking Matt. So I think, he was just trying to make sure that he knew what he was doing. He wanted to make sure it was done right, so
Ultimately, Matt told you you'd have to go somewhere else.
that's correct.
You've testified that that's the day that you decided to go to Texas.
Actually, Friday morning, in the middle of the night when I got up with Lily is whenever Grant and he talked to me about going to Texas for the first time.
And so it was either late Thursday night or early Friday morning that you decided to go to Texas?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And you hadn't spoken to your sister about that prior to that time?
No, ma'am. My sister and I had been talking since my mom had passed away about us trying to get together. We wanted to go to New Mexico where my mom lived to try to go through her stuff. My brother lives there. And so we had been trying to get together for that purpose.
And so it wasn't until Friday that you called and said, can we come see you?
That's correct.
And Grant Hayes had never met your sister?
That's correct.
He had never been to that residence in Texas?
No, ma'am.
This was your family?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Your sister, your nephews, your niece?
Correct.
In fact, Grant had not met any of them.
That is
right?
correct.
You testified that at this point that you're broke, that you've got thousands of dollars of credit card debt, and that you've got nothing left as far as savings.
Absolutely nothing.
In fact, I think you said the only thing you had left was that piece of furniture that was in the storage unit.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And how much was that worth?
Honestly, I don't know, but it was definitely worth several $1,000s.
And your decision at this time was to take the last piece of property that you had that was of any value from that storage shed and transport it to Texas and give it to your sister?
Yes, ma'am, I actually was concerned that he would try to sell it.
Well, you had, prior to that, you had made a loan to your sister, is that right?
I have lent my sister money off and on since I was 15 years old.
Well, were you aware that, or do you recall that in January, February, March of 2011, that she was making payments back to you for a loan?
Oh, I think you're speaking of my niece, Candace.
Okay. Well, there was a loan to your niece Candace, but there was also a loan to Karen and her husband Shelton.
At her husband Stanley. At one point, my sister had called me. They were behind on their house payment, and I did lend my sister $500. I don't recall exactly what month it was, but it may have been like right whenever the jewelry was sold, and so I did have a little bit of cash, and I knew she would pay me back. So I did lend my sister $500 at some point.
And you were, your mother had died the month before.
In June, that's correct.
And you were upset, weren't you, with your siblings, and that nothing was given to you?
Not until later, after after I was incarcerated, my mother was cremated, and they did her ashes and everything without ever speaking to me. So that's correct. I was upset that they never spoke to me about anything.
Well, one of the things they didn't speak to you about was jewelry that you had given your mother, that none of that came to you, is that right?
I don't believe anything has been, I think my brother has all of her jewelry still. It hasn't ever been divided.
So at some point you were upset that none of that had
That's
come to you.
correct. I was upset. I felt like, there was no hurry in doing it. They also left my other sister out, and also Shay was not included either, so.
The piece of furniture you've indicated that you wanted to give to your sister, when you got to Texas, ultimately you took that piece of furniture, unloaded it with Grant Hayes, and left it in the yard of her residence, didn't you?
No, ma'am, I did not help him unload it.
Who did?
Honestly, I don't know. Whenever I went outside, I was assuming my nephew did. I don't know who did.
As part of this case, you've had a chance to review statements made by various people in this investigation, all the police reports, all the interviews. You've had all that available to you for years, haven't you?
I don't know if I'd say years.
How long have you had it all available to you?
It's been available to my attorneys.
How long have you had it available to you?
I have still to this day not seen everything. My attorneys have just shown me certain parts.
Well, it's one of the things that they showed you, interviews with your nephews, in which they said that they offered to help unload that piece of furniture.
Getting into attorney-client privilege areas.
Have you seen those interviews?
I don't believe I've seen the ones from my nephew. I have seen the ones from my sister, and I've seen the ones from Shay. That's correct.
You weren't aware that your nephews had said that they offered to help you remove that furniture, and that you declined that help, and that you and Grant Hayes are the ones that unloaded that piece of furniture out there in the yard?
Again, I did not help him, and I was not aware as to what they said. I know that they had offered a couple times when we first got there that very first day, and he was tired and he didn't want to unload it at that time. That's correct.
And so you are not aware that your nephews have said that they did not help, and that you and Grant are the ones that unloaded that furniture?
Well, I did not help unload the furniture. I don't know how it got out. Like I said, I thought that they had helped, but if they didn't, then I don't know how he got it out. When I went outside that night, it was already on the grass, and he was in the trailer.
Okay, what night are you speaking of?
Monday night.
That would be the same night that you saw some car lights, and that's what awoken you from the bedroom where you were sleeping?
Some noise had woke me up, and whenever I looked out, I saw car lights backing out, and then I saw Grant walk across the yard. That's correct.
And that was when you saw the piece of furniture sitting in the yard?
Whenever I went outside, that's correct.
So would it surprise you that your nephews and your sister, all of them said that that furniture wasn't unloaded until Tuesday?
Whenever they woke up Tuesday morning, that's correct. It was outside.
No, no ma'am. Tuesday night.
No, ma'am. It was out there Monday night when I went outside.
Ms. Hayes, this trip to Texas, how long did it take you to drive to Texas, or did you drive?
I drove a little bit, but not very much, and we left Saturday night. I don't know, 11:30, 12 o'clock, 12:30, something like that, and we got there Monday morning.
So it's over 24 hours. this trip.
Definitely, yes, ma'am.
And during that time, you are riding in the vehicle with Grant Hayes.
Yes, ma'am.
And you are pulling a trailer behind the Durango.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's your testimony before this jury that you don't discuss Laura Ackerson and what happened on Wednesday night or the days thereafter during that trip?
I'm not 100% sure of every single conversation we had.
Don't you think those would have stuck out in your mind?
I really don't recall.
So you don't remember if you asked about Laura, how she was?
I don't believe so, no. I don't believe she was brought up, no. I'm just not going to swear that we never ever spoke about her. I don't recall any conversations we had about her. I'm just not going to say she was never mentioned.
You knew, you testified earlier that Laura called every day, at least twice a day, to talk with those boys.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Did she call Thursday?
Not to my knowledge.
She called Friday?
Again, not to my knowledge.
And did you have your phone on Thursday?
Yes, the phone was always on.
And that was the 4651 number was always on?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Ms. Hayes, when did you find out about the saw, the skill saw?
Whenever I was at the Wake County Detention Center,
And when was that?
after July 25th.
How did you find out about the saw?
I found out through different people talking and I believe my attorneys.
Well, who is Randy Miller?
Objection, Your Honor. We need to be heard outside the presence of the jury.
Overall, if she can answer, if she knows somebody that runs that.
Yes, that's correct, I do.
Who is Randy Miller?
Randy Miller is a private investigator that worked for me.
And when did he work for you?
From July until I don't know exactly when.
When you say July of 2011?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay. So soon after your arrest?
That is correct.
And were you aware in August that he went to the Walmart inquiring about the saw purchase?
It's possible.
And that was prior to you getting any discovery or any information, prior to the police department even knowing about the saw?
Yes, it was before I got any discovery, that's correct.
So was that information that you had given to him?
It was information that was spoken about confidentially with my attorneys and him. Yes, that is correct.
So are you the one that directed him to go inquire about the saw purchase at the Walmart?
No, ma'am, I did not give him any directions specifically.
Ms. Hayes, you have testified about various letters or several letters that you received while you were in custody. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And during the time that you were in custody, there was a time when you were communicating with Grant Hayes. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And can you describe to the jury how it was that you were communicating with Grant Hayes?
Several different ways. Whenever I was first incarcerated, he contacted me through the pod telephone system, if you will, and he told me that I need to keep my mouth shut and not trust anybody, that there was a lot of crooked people in the system, and that I better just keep my mouth shut.
When you say you communicated them through at the pod, what do you mean?
You could actually speak to people through the sync.
And explain that to the jury.
There's several floors, I believe 10 floors, and if you blow the water out of your sink, you can communicate on different floors.
So in order for you to go communicate with Grant Hayes, you would have to go to a particular location?
He found me. There's several people that was in our pod that spoke to the guys all the time, and one of the girls told me to go to my room and that he was trying to speak to me.
So you knew that he was trying to communicate with you, and so you went into your room and were able to communicate with him?
Yes, ma'am.
And he did that on a number of occasions?
No, ma'am, just one day. That's all he was in that pod, was one day, I believe.
Did you also find other ways to communicate with him?
He sent me a couple letters.
Did you communicate with him?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay, and what were the other ways you communicate with him?
just through letters.
Now, while you were in custody, there were a number of people that you spoke with about the facts of this case, didn't you?
Very briefly, I was very, very close to a girl whenever I first came in. Her name was Carla, and she really, she probably just saved me. She just kind of taught me how to survive in here, teaching me how to make the food taste a little better. And I did bond with a few people, that is correct.
And you shared with them some information about your case, is that right, or about the facts?
Very, very minimal. My attorney has told me from the get-go not to speak of my case. There is one particular incident that I did tell somebody kind of what happened. We had been playing cards, and I had gotten up to go to the bathroom, and whenever I came back, I had said something about this lady, and this person told me that she wasn't really my friend, and she told me what she had been saying about me, and I started crying, and I told her and another lady kind of what had happened, just basically.
Do you know an individual named Ms. Sheila Haywood?
I met her one time when I very first came, but I did not have a conversation with her in regards to my case. That is, no, I did not.
Do you recall telling her that when Laura came over to the house that night on July the 13th that she fell and that she didn't seem to be moving?
No, ma'am, I don't recall that.
Do you recall telling her that you and Grant tried to wake Laura up by putting a wet towel on her face?
No, ma'am.
Do you recall telling Ms. Haywood that you had taken Laura's body out in the boat to dump it in the hope that the alligators would eat it, that the alligators were at the other end?
No, ma'am, I didn't tell her that.
Do you recall telling her that your sister had called the police?
No, ma'am.
You believed for a time that your sister in fact called the police, didn't you?
I was upset at my sister because I felt like I was upset that I had lost my baby, and I felt like my sister had something to do with me losing my baby.
Did you believe that your sister had called the police?
I believe that my sister had spoke to the police. That's correct.
And you were upset with her for doing that?
I was upset, yes, I was. It's true.
And you were also upset with Shay for turning over Broomstick Rider, weren't you?
I wouldn't say I was upset with her over that. I was just upset because I wanted her to try to stay out of it. I was just trying to protect her.
You were not upset with her for turning over Broomstick Rider?
I just wanted her to stay out of it. I wanted her to not talk to the reporters. I wanted her to just stay out of it.
Well, you told a number of people that you had sent Shay to New Mexico. didn't
Yes,
you?
ma'am, I was trying to protect her to get her away from here. That is correct.
Well, didn't you tell them that the reasons you sent Shay to New Mexico was because you knew that Shay would believe that it was premeditated?
No, ma'am.
Remember talking to a woman named Lachelle Clark?
No, ma'am. I saw her one time in Red Pod.
So you know who that person is?
Yes, ma'am. My friend Carla had told me she was a snitch just to stay away from her. She had come to me one day at the window and given me a piece of candy when I very, very first came, but I never had a conversation with her about my case.
And you're aware that she gave a statement to the police about conversations that she had with you?
Yes, ma'am, I am
And
aware.
you've had a chance to review those, is that right?
There is nothing she said that was accurate.
So if the statement says that you said that your sister Karen told on you and you couldn't believe that she did that,
I'm pretty sure that's what the news was saying. There were lots and lots and lots of things that the news was saying that people were saying.
do you recall Ms. Clark reporting to the police that you said she, referring to Laura, would have washed down the creek and that would have been the end of it?
No, ma'am, I never said that to her at all.
You recall telling Lachelle Clark that you knew that Grant was going to kill Laura?
I
before he
never-
did that?
I never had a conversation with Lachelle Clark ever in my entire life about my case. The day that she spoke to me and gave me a piece of candy, she was telling me about her situation. She told me she had 2 boys and that her husband was in the military. We never ever spoke about me at all in any shape, form, or fashion.
So it's your testimony here before the jury that you never told Lachelle Clark that Grant Hayes stabbed Laura to death, cut her up, and put her in the coolers?
No, ma'am, I did not.
It's your testimony here today that you never said that they, being you and Grant, loaded up the coolers and went to Texas?
I never told her that ever.
And finally, you don't recall telling her, or your testimony is that you didn't tell her, that you were there while Grant did the dumping, that it was stinking, it made your stomach roll, and that you were wearing gloves when you did it?
Again, I never had a conversation with Lachelle Clark about my case in any shape, form, or fashion.
Recall talking to, or do you know a person named Sherry Robinson?
Yes, ma'am, I do. Sherry Robertson and Patricia Bearcat are the 2 women that I told what happened that day whenever we were playing cards. That's correct.
And what you told Sherry Robinson was that Laura had been stabbed,
I did not tell her that. That's not true.
that she fell to the floor near a door and didn't die immediately.
I didn't tell her that either.
You didn't tell her that Laura was put in the bathroom?
I told them that Laura had fallen and that Grant had taken her to the bathroom or helped her or whatever I said, and that I had left with the boys. That is correct. I did tell Patricia and Sherry that.
That Laura was put in the bathroom?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And you told Sherry, didn't you also, that you were involved in cutting Laura up with the saw?
No, ma'am, I never told her that.
Do you recall telling her that you put the body parts in large garbage bags and then inside coolers?
No, ma'am, I did not tell her that.
Did you tell her that you had rented a U-Haul and drove to Amanda's sister house in Texas and dumped, your sister's house in Texas and dumped the body parts in a swamp
No, ma'am, the only thing I spoke to her about was the night that I told them what had happened when Laura had fell. That's the only thing I ever told her.
You've indicated that Patricia Bearcat, that you do recall speaking with her.
Yes, ma'am, she and I had become friends.
And you spoke with her on a number of occasions, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am, she and I were friends. We walked every day together. We played cards together. We ate together. Yes, ma'am.
And you talked with her on several occasions about your case.
Very, very briefly.
And you were aware that she spoke with the police and provided information?
I am
about-
aware now. Yes, ma'am, I am.
And you've had a chance to review that?
Yes, ma'am, I certainly have.
Ms. Hayes, you loved Grant and General, didn't you?
I still love them. Yes, ma'am, I do.
And you wanted, as part of your life, you wanted them to be part of a family where you could travel the world.
I love to travel. I've traveled my entire life since I was a little kid, so yes, I love to travel. I married Grant Hayes, and so with that, I knew that Gentle and Grant would be a part of my life, and so yes, I would like for them to be able to travel too. That doesn't mean that I was trying to eliminate or take them away from their mother in any shape, form, or fashion.
Well, it had gotten to the point over this year where you realized that Laura was not going to give up with regard to the custody battle, didn't you?
Honestly, I really tried to stay out of it between the two of them. I mean, I would not give up on my kids either.
That she didn't give up.
No.
You indicated when you talked to this jury that you have been interested in acting ever since at least you were 24.
Yeah, I was actually about 19 whenever I started. Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And that's something that you pursued, the theater as well as television and...
I did theater primarily, and then whenever I was 29, I went to the 2-year conservatory.
So the 2-year conservatory involved, as you described earlier, you couldn't work anywhere else. It was a constant training.
Yes,
for
ma'am.
acting.
It was 4 days a week, all day. That's correct.
And that involved learning your lines and playing a role and presenting it in a convincing way.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
And that's what you needed to do to be successful as an actress.
Among other things, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
All right. Mr. Gaskins, do you have any questions based on the
Yes, Your Honor.
cross?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Hayes.
Good morning.
You've been asked some questions about the relationship that you had with Grant when he first came to New York after leaving the Virgin Islands.
Yes, sir.
Now, did he stay with you at the apartment for some period of time?
Yes, sir. I let him stay. He moved into the apartment. That's correct.
And what was he doing to try to earn some income?
He was going out every night trying to go to open mics, and eventually he contacted this bar, and he started a variety show there. And so he had his own show in New York for a little while.
And at what point did he bring Gentle, or not Gentle, but at what point did he bring Grant
It
to
was
New York?
it was the middle of February, so approximately a month later.
And in May, you met Gentle, correct?
That's correct. When we came down for little Grant's birthday.
What role were you attempting to play in the dispute that was developing between Laura and Grant?
Honestly, whenever Grant would ask me, I would tell him ultimately they're your children. You have to make the decision. But I did encourage Grant to you know, to not be hateful or vindictive in any form. I really just tried to encourage him so that they could have a relationship so that it was in the best interest of the children.
And was it your desire that the best thing, that the best interest of the children be protected?
That is correct.
Did you get along well with Laura?
Yes, I did.
And-
Mostly, I mean, we had a couple of different run-ins, but yes, I did get along with her.
And as time went by, the dispute between Laura and Grant was escalating, was it not?
Yes, very muchly so.
And what did you do during that period of time to try to keep the two of them calmed down?
I told Grant that whatever was between he and Laura was between he and Laura. As long as what they did didn't affect the kids, I don't care. When it came to the kids, I was going to take the kids' side. Period. End of story. I don't care about the two of you.
And as time went by, you were running out of money, weren't you?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And now you were pregnant at that time?
Yes, sir.
And is that what decision did you make about what had to be done, or what needed to be done with the custody of the boys and your situation with Grant as July 2011?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Did you make a decision at some point about what needed to be done in the best interest of the boys?
Did I make a decision?
Did you make a decision about what would be in their best interest as far as Laura was concerned?
I believed that at that particular time that 2-2-3 split was not in their best interest. I believed that the fighting had to stop. I mean, everybody was exhausted in every shape, form, or fashion, and it was really starting to take a toll on everybody. I believed that the best thing at that point was just to let Laura have the boys and try to work something out from that situation.
And did you believe that Grant could manage the boys if you were no longer around?
No, definitely not.
And did you start making plans as to move to Kinston once it became apparent that you were out of money and were about to be evicted from Bella Park?
When Grant came back from Hawaii, we really, that's, I believe, whenever he first started speaking to his parents. I know his parents had come down one day and spent the day with us, and they had offered for us to take over the daycare and stuff. So around middle of May is when we really started contemplating going to Kinston.
And what was the plan at that time as to where the boys would be while you and Grant and Lily were living with his parents?
At that point, we really, I mean, we had discussed the boys going with Laura, but only that last, in July did we really, because I believe he had already told his parents that he had already made the decision to let Laura take them. And whenever he had told his parents for sure we were coming, he told them that it was just going to be myself, he, and Lily.
Now, on July 13th, when Laura came over to the house, did you and the boys stay in the bedroom when Laura and Grant were at the table writing out that agreement?
Yes, sir. I only came out whenever to go get the diaper.
When you came out of the bedroom, did you see the agreement that Grant and Laura had written out?
Whenever I came out, Laura was writing something, and then she slid it to him, and that's whenever I stopped to read it. Yes, sir.
Were you surprised to see what that agreement said in view of what you already believed was going to be happening?
I think I was more irritated than surprised.
And is that when you left to go back to the bedroom?
I was on my way to the nursery, that's correct. I didn't even say anything, I just turned to go.
And what did Laura say as you turned and left?
While I was reading the note, she kept commenting on Lily, on how pretty she was, and she asked if she could hold her, and I didn't even acknowledge her. And
What did she say?
she told me to wait a minute, and that something to the effect that I had her kids every day, and I wouldn't even let her see mine.
Did you go back to the bedroom then?
Not at that time, not until after her and Grant had their struggle.
And that was when Grant grabbed her and pulled her backwards over the chair.
Yes, that's correct.
Is that when you went into the bedroom?
Yes, that's correct.
How long was it before Grant came to the bedroom to tell you that Laura was injured?
I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 7 minutes maybe.
And what did he tell you that he intended to do about Laura?
He told me that he was going to call for an ambulance, that she was injured.
And what did he want you to do with the boys?
He wanted me to take the boys out so that they didn't see. I mean, they didn't even know she was there.
And where was he going to take her or help her in order that you could get the boys out of the apartment without them seeing that she was injured?
To the hall bathroom.
Now, tell us what the problem was with the hall bathroom that had occurred the day before.
Well, Gentle had used the potty chair. He had gone poop, and he had tried to empty it his own self. Grant was supposed to be watching them while I was cooking dinner, and I guess he had put a whole bunch of toilet paper, and it had stopped the toilet paper up, or the toilet up, and the bathroom was just really nasty. Little Grant is the one that found him, and the whole rest of the day he kept telling Gentle that that was really gross to play with poop.
And what did Grant do about the bathroom that day?
I told him he had to clean it up. Anything really gross, I usually made him clean up anyway. I thought that he cleaned it. I don't know how great he cleaned it, but then he told me that a day or two later that it still smelled like poop. And so that day he took, because the boys always get their bath right after dinner. If they eat all their dinner, I give them a popsicle. And so they were messy, and so I usually would give them a bath. And so he had put their bathroom stuff in my bathroom.
And what did he do with the bathroom that was in the hall?
Well, he told me to not use that bathroom, that the boys not to use it, that the toilet, he was going to have to call maintenance and have them fix the toilet, that it was all jacked up. And he had tried to plunge it, but it was still not working right.
What did he do about locking the door?
He put a piece of tape over the door and locked it.
Is there a way to lock the door from the inside also?
Yeah, because the little Grant, he would lock his rooms, lock the boys inside of the room, sometimes in their bedroom, and so Grant had put tape over those two doors so that they wouldn't lock them anymore, and he put it over the bathroom so that they couldn't get in.
Had there been problems with the children messing up the bathroom prior to that too?
Yes, Gentle liked to hold the toilet thing down and put stuff in the toilet. He did that. He flushed cars down the toilet, several things, that's correct.
And on these previous occasions when Gentle or Grant had messed up the bathroom, what did Grant do in the way of keeping the children out of the bathroom?
Well, Grant just, whenever the toilet was stopped up, he put the tape over it so the boys couldn't go in there, because they had a little step stool and they would go in there that we used whenever they would, it was actually a little chair, a little plastic chair, and to brush their teeth and stuff, and so sometimes they would go in there. And so he kept that door shut anyway.
And would he put a piece of tape over the hole?
Yes, that's correct.
Had you observed on previous occasions before Grant discovered that he needed to put a piece of tape over the hole, that Grant had figured out how to open the door?
Well, little Grant had,
Overall, go ahead.
Little Grant had watched his daddy get in before with just like a penny, it's like a little slit, and so he would try to do it. And so Grant just put it over so in case he ever did figure out actually how to do it. He, on their bedroom door, he put it on the inside and the outside. They had a child-proof thingy on the closet door because he would lock Gentle in the closet sometimes.
How long did the bathroom door stay shut after it had been closed on Tuesday, July the 12th?
I really didn't pay attention. I think it just stayed shut after that because at that point the boys, I mean, we were getting busy getting ready to move stuff, so they just continued to use my bathroom.
And was the bathroom starting to smell?
Grant said it did. I didn't go in there, so I don't know. He said it still smelled like poop.
And had Grant made some effort to clean it up prior to Thursday, did you know?
He had cleaned it on that Tuesday whenever Gentle first did it, but again, he said it still smelled like poop.
Now, after you left and went to the Chick-fil-A,
Yes.
what did you do for the period of time that you were out of the apartment?
On the evening of,
July 13th.
okay, when I went to the BP station, I got the boys, well, first I drove by Monkey Joe's, and they were closed, and so then I backtracked and went to the BP station, and I got 2 slushes and a pack of cigarettes. When I got to the car, because our car has the lock so that you can lock the car and start it, so I had left all the kids in. I was just in for a second, but the door was locked and the car was running, and I got their slushes. So when I got back to the car, little Grant needed to go pee-pee, but I wasn't going to leave the kids in there while I took him in, so I just drove over to the end of the parking lot and opened the car door and let him pee on the driveway. And then I went to Wendy's drive-thru and got a soda because I realized I was thirsty. And then I drove to the mall, and by the time I got to the mall, they were all 3 asleep, and so I just drove around.
And did you go back by the apartment?
Eventually, yes, I did.
What did you see?
Well, whenever I saw Laura's car, and that's when I was getting the boys out, and little Grant had told me he was hungry, and I asked him what he wanted to eat, and he told me he wanted chicken because he was a chicken man.
And did you go back to the Chick-fil-A then?
Yes, sir. I knew that there was really no food upstairs, and I thought that Grant was gone with Laura, and so I went ahead and I asked him if he wanted to go at the Chick-fil-A, and I figured that they could play on the playground stuff. That's why I went inside instead of going through the drive-in, because they didn't get to go to Monkey Joe's.
While you were in the Chick-fil-A, did you buy food and a drink for Grant?
That's correct. I figured he probably didn't eat while he was gone, and he'd be hungry when he got home.
So did you take that food back home?
I did. I took it up to him.
And when you got there, that's when he was smoking and sitting on the stove?
He wasn't smoking, but the house was smoky, so I knew he had been smoking in the house. It was smoky.
Is that when you put the children to bed?
Yes, that's correct.
What did you do next?
After I put the kids to bed, I talked to Grant briefly. That's whenever I asked him what happened with Laura, and he told me that she didn't want to go to the hospital, that she was fine, and that she had left. And he picked up his phone and called his mom and walked out on the balcony. I went to my bathroom and got ready, washed my face and everything. And then when I came back in, he had told me that, actually before he called his mom, he told me to call Shay the next morning and have her come get the boys. And so then he called his mom, and then I went out to the bathroom, and he went outside.
What did he tell you about Laura?
He just told me that she was fine, that she did not want to go to the hospital, and she wanted to go home.
What did he tell his mother about going to Kinston the next morning?
I really don't know what he told her. I did hear him say, "I'll see you tomorrow."
Did you then go to bed?
Yes, after I brushed my teeth and stuff, that's correct.
Where did Grant go?
I have no idea.
Did he come back sometime during the middle of the night?
I heard him leave and I heard him come back. That is correct.
Did, to your knowledge, when you went to bed, was Laura fine and had she returned home?
That's what he had told me. That's what I believe.
Did you see any blood in the house anywhere?
No, none at all.
Did you see any evidence that there had been a struggle of any kind?
Just from earlier, but he had already picked the chair up, so no.
The next morning, you still had the only phone that was working at that point,
That's correct. The next day, Thursday, I activated his phone again.
Did you call Shay as he had asked you to do?
That's correct. I called Shay, and then I called Monkey Joe's, and then I called Laura, and then I called his mom.
And approximately what time did Grant get back on Thursday morning?
It was probably somewhere around 11, between 10:30 and 11, I would say.
And the two of you stayed at home that day, did you not?
Yes, that's correct. Then later that afternoon, I left and went to Target, and when I came back, he left again.
Why did you go to Target?
I went to get some stuff for the kids, and we were out of toilet paper.
Was it Grant who asked you to buy the bleach?
Yes, sir.
Why did you buy the lint roller?
Honestly, I thought it was kind of cool. I thought we could use it for the furniture, the bed. I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool. I'd never seen one that big before.
And at that time, were you aware that you were going to be trying to sell the furniture since you were moving to Kinston?
Yes.
After you got back from the Target, where did Grant go?
I know he was supposed to meet someone. He had listed his computer to sell, and I believe that's where he went, was to sell his computer. He took both boys with him at that time.
What kind of computer was it?
He had a Apple MacBook Pro, the big one.
Did you see him again that night?
Yes.
At what time?
I don't know. He came back with the boys, and so I'm sure we had dinner together. I probably cooked dinner, and
Now, at some point, did Grant continue to clean up that hallway bathroom?
yes, Friday morning he was mopping the floors. He mopped the bathroom floor, and he mopped the kitchen floor, and he mopped the entryway floor. And that's how the mop bucket got spilt. I was doing laundry, and the boys were running and playing, and they spilt the mop bucket.
And the mop bucket was the bucket that had bleach in it?
That's correct.
Is that how the stain got on the carpet near the floor?
That's correct.
Had Grant also used the contents of that bucket to clean the bathroom, the hall bathroom?
I believe so.
And was it your belief that what he was cleaning up was the problems that General had created when he messed up the bathroom?
Yeah, he had gotten poop on several things. That was the reason that he had thrown the toothbrush away. Gentle had got poop on it, and I told him that I'm not using the toothbrush after it had poop on it, so.
Did you help Grant with the cleaning up of the
No.
apartment on Friday morning?
I helped a little bit, but I didn't do a whole lot. I could, like, wash dishes, and I could put the clothes in the washer, but I really wasn't even putting them in the dryer. I was still pretty sore from having Lily. I had had a C-section, so.
But were you busy watching out for Lily and the boys
On what day?
on that Friday morning?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, that Friday afternoon, Grant was scheduled to take the boys back to Wilson to exchange them with Laura.
That's correct.
Did he call you from Wilson to tell you that Laura hadn't shown up?
Yes, that's correct.
Were you aware that telephone calls were being made to try to locate Laura?
I know that he had called his mom and asked her if she would go by Laura's apartment. I don't know if she did or not. I honestly, I can't remember. He might have told me that he was going to go by Laura's apartment. I don't recall if he did or not. I really don't know. I want to say that he said he was going to.
Now, during this same period of time, Grant had brought up the topic of going to Texas to visit with Karen, your sister. Is that correct?
That's correct. Either Thursday night or early in the middle of the night at some point.
And he did that because you hadn't had an opportunity to go to your sister's house when your mother died.
That's correct. He told me for several reasons. He told me because he wanted me to be able to see my mom, to see my sister. He told me that because we were moving, it was in the middle of the month and we still had, 2 weeks, so technically we could move the next week. And I really wanted to go. I wanted her to meet Grant and the boys and Lily, and I didn't know when I was going to be able to see her again.
When you originally planned to go, it was just you, Grant, and Lily, correct?
That is correct.
Now, I'm going to object. I think we're just going back through. I don't think there's anything new.
Well, overall,
And whose idea was it to take the piece of furniture to Texas?
It was Grant's idea, but I definitely wanted to take it too. That's correct.
You were afraid that you were going to lose it if you didn't get it in a safe spot.
That's correct.
Now, on that Friday night, did Grant leave again?
Yes, he did.
When did you see him the next?
I didn't see him again until Saturday afternoon.
And then, when did you leave Raleigh to begin the trip to Texas?
It was somewhere between 11:30 and 12:30 at night, Saturday night.
Now, Ms. Holt asked you if there was any conversation on the way to Texas. You recall that?
Yes,
Do you recall Grant telling you about the dream that he had had?
that's correct.
What was that?
That he had a dream that he was in a forest and that he had killed Laura, and that if I didn't help him, that he was going to kill me, that I would be next.
When you got to Texas, that Monday, you thought Laura was fine and at home in Pensacola.
sustained.
Where did you think Laura was?
Honestly, I really didn't give it much thought, but I was just under the assumption that she was fine.
Did you have anything to do that night at all with removing the piece of furniture from the U-Haul trailer?
No, when I went outside, it was already on the grass.
And when you went outside, that's when you had that conversation with Grant about what he wanted you to tell your sister in order to get her to help.
That's correct.
And you did, in fact, did you not, go out on that boat with Grant on that creek?
That's correct, I did.
Sustained to the leading.
Did you go out on the boat?
Yes, I did.
And at the time that you went out on the boat, you were aware that
Sustained to the leading.
what were
Doing. I didn't want to be there in any shape, form, or fashion. I didn't want to participate in it. I did the very minimum that I had to.
on that Wednesday morning, did you have another conversation with your sister Karen
About what?
about covering for Grant?
Objection?
Sustained.
Did
Sustained to the leading.
you talk to your sister Karen on Wednesday morning?
Yes, sir. My sister, I was walking through, we were trying to get ready, and she told me to sit down on the couch. She wanted to ask, she needed to talk to me for a second. And she looked at me and she says, I'm going to ask you this, and I'm only going to ask you one time, and you better tell me the truth. And she asked me if I was covering for Grant, and I just shook my head yes. And I had tears rolling down my face, and she said, that's what I thought. And that was it. Excuse me.
Were you aware, or did you become aware at some point that Shay had found the skill saw manual at the apartment?
Yes, I did.
And Ms. Holt asked you some questions about our investigator trying to find out where the skill saw had been purchased.
Correct.
Do you remember that?
Correct.
The reason you knew about Shay,
Jackson?
Sustained.
how did you know that Shay had found the skill saw?
My attorneys.
And what were you aware, what was your understanding of what Randy Miller was trying to do once the skill saw manual had been discovered?
Randy Miller was just trying to find all the information he could to help me with my case.
He trying to track down the source of the skill saw, to your knowledge?
Yes, he was just trying to gather any kind of information he could that would be beneficial to me.
Did you know anything at that point about there having been a skill saw purchased anywhere, any place?
Not until my attorney told me no.
Did you also become aware that Shay was the one who found the DVD or CD called Broomstick Rider?
Again, through my attorney, that's how I found out.
And were you aware that it was Shay who had turned Broomstick Rider over to the police?
Through my attorney, yes, I knew that.
Now, Ms. Holt asked you if you had had conversations with various different people who were incarcerated with you.
Yes, sir.
I believe she asked you about somebody called Nasheela Haywood.
Yes, sir.
Did you tell Nasheela Haywood anything about your case?
No, I didn't.
Had you been instructed not to talk to those people in the jail?
Yes, I had been instructed not to speak to anybody at all about my case.
Were you told that that was because they would say anything to get out of jail?
Yes, sir.
Overruled.
And it was, I mean, if you've ever been incarcerated before, like, there are snitches everywhere. Personally, I don't trust anybody, and especially after just my first encounters at Wake County, just like everybody is talks about you, trying to find out information. There's so many rumors flying around. The massive amount of stuff that I found out was once I became to Wake County jail. As a matter of fact, a lot of the stuff that I found out has been in this courtroom.
Were you aware that after you were arrested, that there was a great deal of news coverage about your case?
Yes. I tried not to watch it, but it was on every single day, and everybody was talking about it. And again, I really just tried to stay kind of to myself. My friend Carla and she had told me a lot of the stuff that, just people were saying.
So the news media was reporting what had happened?
Yes, it was everywhere.
Everyone that you knew in the jail was talking about what had
Everyone,
happened?
even the
Sustained,
officers.
sustained, just sustained.
The jail talking about what had happened?
Correct, even the officers were talking about it.
when you talked to several people while you were in the jail, did you not?
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people.
Did you tell them the same thing that you have told this jury?
In regards to, I'm not sure I understand.
Did you talk to them about what had happened at the apartment that night, July 13th?
No, I really didn't talk to anybody with the exception of Patricia Bearcat and Sherry Robertson that day.
And what did you tell them?
I just told them that, Laura had wanted to hold Lily and I wouldn't let her, and and Laura had a struggle and that she fell, and that Grant had asked me to get the boys out of the house so that he could call for help.
Did you specifically use the word accident when you talked to them?
I don't remember specifically. I mean, it's been a long time ago. I think I did, but I don't know for sure.
At some point, Ms. Holt asked Shay to go to New Mexico to live with her father.
Whenever Grant contacted me through the jail, it really spooked me, and her very next visit, she came to see me. I told her it was best if she just went to her dad's, and Shay had had a lot of resentment toward her dad, just growing up and stuff, and I told her just to forgive him, that he was the best dad that he knew how to be, and just to go be with him.
Were you concerned when you sent Shay to New Mexico for her safety?
Yes, I was.
And why?
Didn't know what Grant could do. I knew he was still using the telephone. He told me that I should not be talking to her at all. He really tried to keep me away from her.
I have a moment, Your Honor.
All right. Any recalls based on the redirect? Limited to the redirect.
Yes, sir, but just a few.
All right.
Ms. Hayes, you were asking questions on redirect about the bathroom, and you indicated at that point that that bathroom was closed and there was tape placed over it?
Yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, Grant had put tape over it.
Okay, and you're saying that that bathroom, which we've seen on the diagram, which is on the hallway, the main bathroom, that Grant and the boys used every day.
That's correct.
And so it was out of commission, according to your testimony, Tuesday evening at dinner.
Tuesday,
Wednesday all day, Thursday all day, Friday all day, Saturday all day.
Honestly, I don't know if it came back into commission once this stuff was put into my bathroom. The boys just continued to use my bathroom. So I don't know. He told me that he was going to call maintenance to get it undone. I don't know if they came or not, or if he got it
Well,
unplugged.
your testimony is that you were the one that was there all these days.
I was
You were
gone
there.
Thursday. I don't know if they came. Honestly, we never had a conversation about it again. So
Okay. The main
while
bathroom-
I was there, the maintenance people did not come. That is correct.
Okay. And you were the person on the lease. You didn't even have Grant listed on the lease. You
That's
would be
true,
the
but
person.
they knew that he lived there, and, he called them sometimes. He even took the rent occasionally.
So your testimony is that Grant was taking care of getting this bathroom cleaned up, along with making all these purchases, except when you went to the Target and purchased the gloves and the bleach. And
That's
the
correct.
tape.
He asked me.
Okay. You, just a couple more questions. Mr. Gaskins just asked you about the boat and that night on the boat, and what you testified when he asked you this time was that I knew what Grant was doing.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, that's not what you said on cross-examination. Yesterday.
No, ma'am.
Yesterday, it was you were in your own world and you were listening to the animals looking towards the back of the boat, bailing out, having no idea what was in the boat or what Grant Hayes was doing.
I never said I had no idea what he was doing. That's incorrect.
What did you tell
I-
the jury yesterday about what he was doing?
I said that I was facing the other direction, that I didn't see anything, and I did not touch anything in regards to what he was doing. I didn't say I didn't know what he was doing. I absolutely knew what he was doing. That is
Tell the jury
correct.
right now what he was doing.
I'm pretty sure that they just heard me. I knew
didn't
what
hear
he
you.
was
What was he
doing.
doing?
He was getting rid of Laura's body.
Okay, and how was he doing that?
I'm assuming he was putting it in the water.
Okay. Could you hear the splash as her head went into the water?
Again, I heard lots of things. I heard splashing noises. I heard animals. I heard lots of animals. And
What animals did you hear?
I don't know what kind of animals they were. I have no idea.
So what you recall about that boat trip is that there were splashing noises and you heard animals and you were bailing the boat.
That's correct, and I was trying to keep the boat from going into the grassy areas
And why was that?
because I didn't know what was in the grassy areas.
Okay. So you, during the time that you're out in the boat, knowing that Grant Hayes is taking Laura Ackerson's, the pieces of her body and throwing them into the water, what you're concerned about is your own safety and the animals that are in the water?
I am concerned about my safety. I'm afraid he's going to tip the boat over. We're going to go in the water. I'm afraid for lots of things. I don't think you can imagine the kind of fear that I was under. I honestly don't think you can imagine.
The fear that you were under was that the boat would tip over and the animals
I
would
had
hurt you
lots
in
and
some
lots
way?
of fear.
Thank you. I don't have anything for you.
Anything else?
No further questions.
All right, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. You may stand down. All right, folks, it's 11:30. We haven't had the morning break. Mr. Gaskins, do you anticipate further evidence?
I'm sorry?
Do you anticipate further evidence?
I anticipate, Your Honor, offering the exhibit that we had previously offered of Grant in the interview room at the Raleigh Police Department.
Okay. Do you anticipate calling any additional witnesses?
Yes, I'll have someone, and I would ask that.
Wait, I just want to know how much, I want to know, for our planning purposes, do you have additional evidence by calling witnesses?
One more witness.
Okay. Do you anticipate rebuttal evidence?
Yes, sir.
How much?
One witness.
Okay. All right, folks. We haven't heard it all, but you kind of know that we're getting to the end of it by way of evidence. I know you've heard a lot of information, but please keep an open mind. Don't form or express any opinion about the guilt or innocence of the defendant or any amount in controversy. Be careful about your conduct. Follow my previous instructions. Take about 15 minutes for a break and come on back and we will proceed on. All right, the jury is absent. Mr. Gaskins, tell me, how you contend that statements made by Grant Hayes to law enforcement officers, or just some view of Grant Hayes while he was in custody, is competent, admissible, and otherwise probative with regard to the charges in this case regarding your client?
Your Honor, we contend that there's been evidence that Amanda was afraid of him, that he was becoming more and more paranoid, that he was acting more and more crazy as they got back to Raleigh. The tape of him while he is alone in the interview room, believing that no one is watching him, displays evidence of an individual who is mentally and emotionally disturbed, confirming what she was observing was happening as they were returning to Raleigh.
But she's not charged with the commission of any crime that occurred after they left Texas. And his mental state after they left Texas is really not an issue in this lawsuit.
I think her perception is what is important. Her perception of what the dangerous individual that she is having to contend with on the trip back from Texas to Raleigh.
But she's not charged with having been an accessory to this crime for any conduct that she committed on the trip back to Raleigh from Texas, or any conduct that she engaged in thereafter. She's only charged with conduct relating to the events that occurred prior to her arrival in Texas and in Texas.
As I read the indictment, she's charged with providing aid and assistance to him after she knew that he had killed Laura. I don't recall anything that specifically says only what happened in Texas.
Well, but I don't think there's any evidence before this court that would support any contention that she engaged in conduct either on the trip back or after that would constitute accessory after the fact to homicide. Do you contend that there's any conduct that she engaged in either on the trip back or after she came back to North Carolina that would constitute evidence of accessory after the fact, a homicide? Well, there's certainly any evidence. I haven't heard any evidence to that effect.
Your Honor, if I may be heard briefly, the state made a big point to show photographs of Amanda Hayes in a hotel room, seemingly smiling, that we contend she looks haggard. They have put this directly into evidence, or this into relevancy about her state of mind in relation to how Grant is manipulating her, controlling her, and threatening her by presenting those photographs. Without doubt, they want to argue to the jury that she was not in distress, that she was not under duress.
Well, I know, but it's my understanding that your contention with regard to duress is that she engaged in the acts that would constitute the crime of accessory after the fact of murder. And she committed those acts solely because she was under duress and in fear, as I understand the law of the state, that she would suffer or another person would suffer immediate death or serious bodily injury if she did not commit those acts, as I understand the law of the state. And you're telling me that it's her observations of Grant Hayes after they left Texas are such that this is relevant on a claim of duress concerning accessory after the fact to murder?
Yes, Your Honor. Obviously, the most probative evidence would be evidence about Grant's behavior and actions around the 19th and the 20th when the body is dumped into the creek and immediately thereafter. But under relevancy, Your Honor.
And when she's alleged to have committed acts that would constitute accessory after the fact of murder, that you contend are excused because her conduct was involuntary, because she contends that she was reasonably in fear of immediate death or serious bodily injury to herself or another person when she committed those acts.
Yes, Your Honor, but ultimately what happens a few days later in the hotel on the way back to North Carolina, there's no break in time. This is that she is still with Grant. And I think the state's presentation of the photographic evidence drives home the relevancy issue, that they're saying that she wasn't under duress at the time she's with Grant while he's dumping the body in the creek, by showing evidence of a few days later, she, while looking haggard, is smiling in a photo. They have made this highly relevant, this issue about her state of mind as it goes back to, and Grant's state of mind as it goes back a few days earlier. And since you have no disruption in time between Grant being with Laura and vice versa, it is still probative evidence. You know, as Your Honor knows, relevancy is a low bar. It's probative evidence of how Grant likely was a few days earlier. In other words,
When he is in custody, is relevant evidence of how he was a few days earlier when he was not in
We
custody?
believe that's a question for the jury, Your Honor, with all respect.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen any of this, so how about telling me what you believe this is going to show? I don't have a clue what it's going to show. Sounds like long periods of silence.
It's more than that. He's singing, rambling. It is statements where any lay person would think has lost his mind, and he is just not thinking rationally. He has disturbed thought disorders. I mean, it is consistent with who we contend to be a maniac psychopath.
All right. Let's take what we heard.
Yes, Your Honor, I think the difference between those pictures and the hotel is that Amanda's there with Grant, and at that point, that's why that's relevant. At this point, what we're talking about once he's in custody, is how he reacts to being placed in incarceration and sitting in this room where he's being videotaped and folks leave the room. That has no probative value on its effect on Amanda's state of mind. And I would argue to you that it's got a pretty minimal effect on Grant's state of mind, considering that he's sitting in this room for some 6 hours, and after all these activities, I would argue that there's very, very, very little probative value. As a matter of fact, there's no probative value to anything relevant to this case.
Your Honor, one more point. We'd like to say he is singing. He's talking about aliens. These are things that corroborate a large part of Amanda's testimony, that he was becoming more and more paranoid, where she's fearful he's just going to explode at any second. This has a strong tendency to corroborate that, which all goes back to the most relevant point in time, which is for the accessory charge, which is the 19th, and then immediately
Well, what
after.
part of this do you intend to? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of the things in there would have no probative value, but were there events that occurred during the course of this time that he was in custody that are, you contend, significant?
I would, following up on comments Mr. Talton made, there are certain periods of time where he is singing and obviously not rational, but he also gets into some ramblings and some talking about aliens and things of that nature, which directly corroborate information that Laura Ackerson had provided Dr. Calloway through her parenting history survey, and Dr. Calloway, which is their witness, has testified, and through the child custody evaluation, that she had observed him with rambling, tangential talking and thinking, and his thinking was illogical and disturbed, and had recommended psychiatric treatment. And so this video is certainly not the whole 6 hours, but the parts of that video that directly connect and cooperate.
Well, how much of it is it?
Mr. Gaskell.
Your Honor,
How much of it is it?
well, there's a 61-page transcript of conversations that he's having during the time that he's in the interview room, although there are long periods of silence while he is on the tape. What we would propose to do is to play the tape and have the witness read the transcript. You can barely hear him on the tape itself. The transcript was prepared from the tape. We don't propose to play 6 hours worth of tape. We propose to play the tape as it's moving along, but have the transcript read as the jurors are viewing his demeanor.
Through what witness? Through what witness?
Detective Falk.
Okay. Do you intend to direct Detective Falk's attention to everything in that transcript?
There are some things in here that probably don't have relevance to our point. For example, there's some conversations between him and police officers. We don't intend to ask about those questions. We do intend to ask about the things that he's saying when he's in the room by himself, believing that he is not being heard.
Have you highlighted that on any kind of document that you can show Detective Falk if you call him to the witness stand?
I'll have to do that, and I have not done that yet. I can do that quickly so that we don't go through the unnecessary parts. It'll only take me a few minutes to do it.
All right. Can we hear further?
Your Honor, I would just say that if, the whole point of this is to show Grant Hayes' mental state. So his response to police officers when they're interrogating him and asking about stuff and he requests an attorney, that's not appropriate to show his mental state. But these parts that we're going to pick out are appropriate. I'd argue to you that these...
Do you object unless the entire transcript is read? Do you object unless the entire 6 hours is shown?
That is not my contention, but...
Well, but if you did, then I would require them to show the entire 6 hours to this jury.
And that is not what I'm aiming for. And I'm not standing here defending what Grant Hayes says, but it's being offered to show the truth of the matter asserted, that these things that he's saying match up, the aliens thing matches up with what is in this hearsay, which is in this parenting record, and therefore it's being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, and therefore I'd argue to you that it's hearsay, that at this point any conspiracy is over, and it's not in the furtherance of conspiracy, and there's no reason this should be but I understand the court's ruling.
I hadn't ruled yet. I'm just trying to get your contention about if I let any of this in, do you require that I let it all in? I mean, I think you have the right under the concept that if you let any portion of, absent some prejudice, let any portion of a document in, that the state's entitled to require that the entire portion come in, or part of an interview, unless it's otherwise prejudicial, the entire comes in. I just want to know, it would be my impression that a very limited amount of this, if probative at all, may be relevant on the question of the mental state of Grant Hayes during this extended time frame. I'm inclined to allow the defendant offering evidence, as she has the constitutional right to do, some leeway in presentation of evidence that she contends may be relevant to issues concerning her defense. Do you object to my limitation of the transcript, or is it your position that the entire transcript should simply be read?
I don't think that we need to read through the entire transcript. I think that we can accomplish through cross-examination showing the relevant parts where...
Okay, all right.
The other problem we have, though, is that I don't believe that Detective Falk has reviewed this transcript or knows anything about what appears on the entirety of the video.
Well, Detective Falk is a good officer, and he can read. And therefore, I believe he, unless there's some dispute as to the accuracy of the transcript itself, he can certainly be called to by either side to identify the document and read portions of it that his attention is directed to, unless it's the words used by Grant Hayes or the references are just inaudible or unintelligible. And I don't know the answer to any of that. I think we probably need to take a break and let y'all, let the defendant's attorney decide what portions he seeks to have the officer refer to, and also what portions that you may, if not covered on direct.
I have some further questions in that, does the playing of this defendant's interview, does that make, I'm sorry, the playing of Grant Hayes' interview, does that make Amanda Hayes' post-arrest mindset admissible?
Only to the extent of her credibility, which you've already inquired into on the witness stand. And obviously, if she made statements after her arrest that you contend are not truthful, that's an issue that goes to her credibility. All right, let's get the jury back. Is that they've already had their break and come back? All right, that's what I figured. All right, folks, how much time you need to do this? It's 10 o'clock. No, it's 10 minutes till 12. Looking at the clock backwards here. Can you do it in 20 minutes? Sort of.
Your Honor, I think we're ready to go. I think the issue's going to be Mr. Gaskin's highlights and relevant parts.
Well, we're going to take a break. I mean, I'm going to give the court reporter a break and the clerk a break, and we're going to take a break. So, let's take a break about 10 minutes. Come on back at 12 o'clock. Madam Bailiff, would you tell the jury that it's going to be about 10 minutes before we start, so they won't